G'day guys, how are we doing? Welcome to Talking Boxing. It is Monday, January the 12th, 2026, and great to have you along. Firstly, apologies for the time. I hope we don't have people tuning in 45 minutes late. I only just realised when I went to hit the live button that it said it was 7:45. So again, I apologise if your notifications are all over the place. I'm just looking at now where, there we go, just so I can see your comments and everything. So yeah, I do apologise about that. Not cool, obviously. Just let me get this right here. All right, so I'm just, sorry guys, just going to get the comments up so I don't muck them up. All right, there we go. All right, just so I get them in order. But yeah, great to have you along as always. I see there's a few in the chat too, which is really good. It is fight week, of course. It is Nikita Zhu versus Michael Zarafa. Let's go. I'm excited. I must admit, I got a little bit of feedback on today's video, and I'll probably address that tomorrow just quickly. But I did comment about the $70 price tag, and there were a few people that said they disagreed, and that's fine. My comment is that I thought that $70 I didn't think was too much to ask for the fight, considering how much the fight's probably going to cost, and the cost of flights, accommodation, all that sort of stuff if you're going to go to the fights. But I totally understand the feedback coming my way, and that's fine. A lot of people saying they just can't justify the $70, and look, everyone sees things a little bit differently, and I totally get it. And not just about the cost of living either, by the way. A lot of people just saying, "Hey, look, we just don't think the card's worth $70." It's as simple as that, and that's fine. So that's why it's really good to get some feedback from you guys out there, because I put my opinions up, and sometimes it's not in the majority. So thanks to everyone that sent me those messages. There's never a right or wrong answer, by the way. It is just my opinion, your opinion, anyone's opinion. That's what's great about all you guys and girls out there that send me comments and have questions on there and everything else. So thanks to everyone that took the time to comment. All right, let's get into some chat. I'm just going to get to the start so I don't get these out of order. Now, if you're new to the show, the chat there, just put your, whether it's the side down below, wherever the hell it is, I can't see it on here. Put your question, comment, remark, opinion, whatever it might be in the chat, and let's talk some boxing. And also a big thank you to everyone that listens on Spotify after the fact. And just a quick one on Spotify as well. Sometimes I get some messages saying, you haven't uploaded and everything else. I am sorry. The reason why sometimes it takes me till later in the day or even the next day to get the videos or the audio on Spotify is because some days I've got to do the video, I've got to jump in the car and I've got to go, and I just haven't got time to upload it. Sometimes I don't get back till late, whatever it might be, and I've got to do it the next day. So if you're wondering why the videos aren't up straight away, and they're on YouTube and not on Spotify, that's the reason why. Especially this one, I think normally I do it a Wednesday because I'm out of town on the Tuesday. So anyway, that's the reason why. Let's get into this. Enough of me talking shit. Let's go. All right, let's start with Asbot. Actually, I reckon I've got a feeling. I was going to say I reckon these comments might be in the right order, but they're not. All good. Asbot. Hi all. Big win for Dalton. Dalton Smith, I'm assuming that is. Where are we? Actually, I just want to bring up the results so I don't miss all the latest news. All right, so a big win for Dalton Smith. Not sure how long he will hold the title. Got lucky to win a slugfest between two guys with no head movement. They both took heaps of unnecessary punishment. Great fight, though. Yeah, and again, apologies I didn't comment about this morning. I had 4 or 5 people send me messages saying, well, hang on, you didn't even comment about that. You're all about this week's fight week. And that's I'm not going to apologise about that either, by the way. It's walking boxing. It's different comments. I will get to it eventually. But yeah, I did see the highlights yesterday of Dalton Smith. I didn't actually get to watch the fight live because I just couldn't find it. I had to watch later on YouTube. But a good win by Dalton Smith, but I'm with you there, Asbot. I'm not sure he got lucky. For me, he just hung in there. I thought that Sabril Matias got the better of the exchanges, but it just seemed to me that Smith just hung in there. He gave as good as he got on most occasions, but I think if you overall, I thought that Matthias looked like he was doing the most damage to Dalton Smith. But as I said, he hung in there. He kept landing his own shots, and then he got through a couple of good shots, wobbled Matthias, and that last big right hand finished him off. So it was hard to see from the angle too, because there's a few people said it might have been stopped a little bit early. I don't think so. I think the angle I saw, and there was a little bit on social media from people in the crowd and all that sort of stuff as well, his legs were very wobbly. I think the referee made the right call. But you're right about the head movement, but there was none. It was just, well, you cop 3 or 4, then you cop 3 or 4, and who's going to drop first? I just think, really more than anything, it was Dalton Smith's toughness that kept him in the fight. I think it was anyone other than Dalton Smith. Matthias would have got him out of there, to be honest. I thought he was landing some great shots and 3s and 4s in a row, not just one at a time. And as I said, Dalton Smith hung in there, and then his opportunity came and he took it. So really good win for Dalton Smith. Where does he go from here? Well, he's got plenty of options, hasn't he? I'm just looking at the rankings at the moment. Obviously, there's the winner of Lopez and Shakur Stevenson. Who's the number 1 challenger for the WBC? Good title to get, by the way, too. The WBC 140-pound title. Where are we? There we go. WBC. All right, so... Pitbull Cruz would be the obvious one, wouldn't it? Not so sure Dalton Smith would be able to put up with the relentlessness of Isaac Cruz. Now I'm not saying that Cruz is, any pound-for-pound, fighter these days or in the top 10 of any pound-for-pound rankings, but styles make fights, as they say. And I just think Isaac Cruz, or Isaac Cruz, however, I was just calling Pitbull, the way he fights, it'll be a great fight, don't get me wrong. Him and Smith just going head-to-head. I'm not so sure that Smith would be able to hang in there for as long as he did with Matthias if he had someone like, or if he stood in front of Cruz and just went toe-to-toe with him. So you think it'd be either Cruz or even Puello might be next. I think he was in line for a rematch, wasn't he? So, we'll see about that one. All right, let's go to Big J. How you going there, mate? Good to have you along. Hope your channel's going well. I haven't seen it for a little while, so apologies about that. Yes, mate, it's finally fight week. I'm calling it Zarafa by KO. As he'll expose Nikita's defense fails, I'm assuming you mean there, and possibly weak chin, similar to the Hardman fight. Look, I'm not going to argue with that, Big J. It could be on the cards. I'm not going down that route, but look, it can happen. I can definitely see Nikita maybe getting careless or fatigued, or whatever it might be, and Michael Zarafa landing a shot and finishing Nikita off, but I'm still leaning towards Nikita, his class and his power and just his overall ability, I think, being too much for Michael Zarafa. But look, again, I'll go over this on one of the episodes of Walking Boxing, probably Fridays. I'll go over it in full. But the way I sort of see it is, I mean, all things when you think about it point towards Michael Zarafa winning the fight. When you think about it, if you've got all the boxes there to be ticked, you've got size, which is in Zarafa's favour. You've got experience which is in Zarafa's favour. You've got probably power, maybe slightly in Zarafa's favour. Everything's sort of in Zarafa's favour. But the reason I'm looking at Nikita is I just think, I know it's a big if he doesn't get nailed, I just see his overall boxing ability just being far too much for Michael Zarafa. Now, again, massive asterisk, massive underline there, bold, italics, whatever you might want to call it, with if he doesn't get caught. That's the big question for me, because if he doesn't, I just think his talent, ability, speed, power, you name it, is going to be far too good for Michael Zarafa, who, in my opinion, is a very, very limited fighter. And I was going to say I don't mean to be offensive to Michael, but I'm just calling as it is. I think technically Michael Zarafa isn't a very good fighter, and that's probably been shown up by the elite fighters he's fought overseas. But here in Australia, he's been very, very hard to beat. And we are in Australia. He's got an inexperienced guy. I suppose, is going by another box that hasn't been ticked, is that Nikita, I think, has world-class abilities. It's whether or not he can stick to the plan, maintain composure, and not get caught. So I'm with you there. Look, and as I said, Big J, I'm certainly not arguing with you there at all. Calling Zarafa by KO. I would think he would maybe learn from the Hardman fight don't go too early against Michael Zarafa because he's dangerous. And as always, if he gets you hurt, he's going to get you out of there. So we'll see. We'll see. All right, still with Big J. Good to see Taylor Jensen getting a shot at the 135-pound IBF title, but the 135-pound division is the peak for women's boxing, so she'll have to be at her very best to defeat the Turkish champion. Yeah, what was her name? El Tafar or something? She is Turkish. I did watch a bit of her on YouTube, Big J. I hadn't really seen that much about her, to be honest, but where is she? There was an article about her defending against Jensen, Taylor Jensen. No, I can't find it. All right, no, we'll move on. All right, anyway, but yeah, the Turkish champion, she's very wild. They market her as a big puncher. I just think she's a bit of a shock puncher. I just don't think the girls she's fighting are used to someone that fights so aggressively and almost recklessly. You see, most of the girls are nice and tight, and they like to be all technical and sort of outbox each other. The Turkish fighter, who again I can't remember her name, I'll remember it later. I think it's Turhan or something like that. Anyway, but she just goes out there and tries to take her opponents out, and it's something you don't normally see. And that's what I think catches most of her opponents off guard. But Taylor Jensen, look, she's got very, very good boxing skills, Big J. I've seen a lot of her as an amateur and a couple of fights as a pro. She's got some good ability. Whether she's going to be strong enough and experienced enough and durable enough to hang with the champion is another thing. But I think she'll give a good account of herself. I think the good thing about, well, one thing you see with Aussie with female boxers is they're all very, very well schooled. A lot of them are very, very, or have been very good amateurs. And, Taylor Jensen was a good amateur. So we'll see. But it's going to be a tough one, Big J, especially it's on an Eddie Hearn card. She's fighting an Eddie Hearn fighter. She's definitely the B side. So, all the best to Taylor Jensen. All right. We've got one more from Big J. Happy that the IBF gave Paro his shot at Crocker for the 147-pound title. Don't know if he got the goods to overcome Crocker, though, but he'll have to prove it in the ring. I think I'm probably a little bit more confident against Crocker than I was against Donovan, I reckon, BJ. I mean, Crocker, he's awkward. He can fight, obviously. He's got the 2 wins over Donovan, although one of those was obviously questionable. I think Donovan is the more talented fighter. And I'm still dubious about what happened there with Paddy Donovan and what the alternative plans were or motives were for Paddy Donovan. But I think Crocker's very, very beatable. And I think I was just going to say, if Paro can get over Donovan, he doesn't need to now, does he? Because he's got the guaranteed shot. I think Liam Paro is a massive, massive chance against Crocker, Big J. The only thing that might sway me is if they make Liam go over to England, which probably will be the case, being it's an Eddie Hearn show, it's an English promotion, English champion, all this sort of English promoter. It all sort of just points at Crocker having all the advantages. So that's the only thing for me that sort of comes into it. But I think head-to-head, I think Liam Paro is a massive chance to win that fight. All right, we've got Tom's dad, Naz. How are you there, Naz? If I can find your comments. Sorry, I'm not sure if I've gone past it there. Where are you? All over the place, these comments. All right. Evening all. Unpopular opinion, but I just can't get excited about Nikita versus Zarafa. Would have paid the $70 with Paro on the card as it was the only fight with any real implications. Yeah, and that's one of the arguments that a lot of people pointed at me, Naz, is that, well, $70, not even a title fight. There's no titles at all at stake, as far as I know. It's not listed anywhere from what I've seen. Actually, I'll just have a quick look. We'll have a quick look at the card in a second as well. I will say the card is definitely weakened a lot by Liam Paro and Paddy Donovan not being on the card. All right, so it's for the WBO International Middleweight title. Okay. All right, we'll have a look at that. We might have a look at the full card later. Yeah, for the WBO International Middleweight title. And look, really, what the belt really means, those regional belts, all you're really getting is a ranking. They sort of disguise the belts as just buying a ranking or winning a ranking. That's all they really are. So the WBO, what's for the middleweight title? So I think Michael is already ranked with the WBO anyway, isn't he? In the middleweight division. Where is it? WBO. So he's already ranked number 8. So if he wins on Friday, he could rocket up to sort of number 3 or 4. And Nikita, who is ranked number 12 with the WBO at 154, if he wins, I'm not sure how that works. I don't think it'll affect him, I'm pretty sure, because he's gone up in weight. It's not at, although this is a catch weight, but he's still over 154-pound limit. So, anyway, but as far as implications goes, they're just fighting for a ranking more than anything, or getting a higher ranking. And I agree, Naz, and as I said, a lot of people with the same opinion than you. $70 is just too much to pay. But I do disagree as far as getting excited about Nikita versus Rafa. I think it's going to be an excellent fight. I really do. I think it's going to be a very close fight. I think there's going to be a lot of maybe back and forth. I think it's going to be a very, very good fight. Could even be a little bit like Michael's second fight with Jeff Horn. It was just a bloodbath. So we'll see. But yeah, I am excited about the fight now. I can't wait, if I'm being honest. I think it's going to be fantastic. All right. Where are we? Still with Naz. I think you've got a couple in a row there. Don't get Poking Horn, Reeves, and Wells on the prelims when they're all exciting fighters to watch. Wilson also exciting, buried on the main card, and an NRL player so high, tailored to casuals. Yeah, well, that will give us an opportunity to go to the actual card there, Naz. I'm with you on that. I did comment on Walking Boxing the other day that I don't get the order of the card. I'll see if I can find... I'll go to Facebook and see the No Limit card and see what ones are the main card and which ones aren't. Again, I went through this the other day. But Liam Wilson, I mean, you've got Mundine Jr. As the opener of the card, which, look, I sort of get. It's Chuck Mundine's son. I understand. It's only a 4-rounder. Just get things off, and it'll probably knock him out anyway. Now, where are we? Oh, the grand arrivals were today, weren't they? There you go. Where are these cards? All right, so you've got Jack Javed and Zefi Vayatua is the first fight of the prelim card. Then there's Blake Wells, Aniwa Yelizati, 20-2. I reckon I've seen him fight before, that guy. Billy Pokinghorn, you would have thought if he's a no-limit fighter, they might have put him up the card a little bit. But then having said that, Liam Wilson is also trained by Benny Harrington, so obviously they want a gap in there. Max Reeves, Sonny Abid, yeah, it doesn't make much sense. And then you go to the main card. So yeah, you got Mundine, Jeffrey Matthews, 0-1. Well, I don't think that's going to go too far, if I'm being honest. Yeah, then Liam Wilson, and then Stephen Ivic, Liam Taliva, Nelson Asofa, Solomona, Jeremy Lattimore, and then Dempsey McKean, Tawosu Vasawatu. Now, if I had to arrange that card, Naz, I would have Liam Wilson as the main support. I mean, he's world rated. I mean, geez, he's going to fight for a world title this year. Supposedly a no-limit fighter. I'm not sure Dempsey McKean or Tawosu Vasawatu asked, but I mean, Dempsey McKean you would think is the ace side on that. I know he's an ace boxing fighter. I know Ace and No Limit are now best buddies and everything else, but it doesn't make sense to me as far as implications go. So I would have Liam Wilson and Rodex Piala as the main support. Maybe put Dempsey McKean and Tawosu Vasawatu after that. Then I would probably have maybe Ivic after that, and then maybe Nelson. Well, no, I'd probably have the rugby player. Then I would have Stephen Ivic as the down the order a little bit. So really, I've just shuffled. Well, I suppose with all that, all I've done is shuffle Liam Wilson to the top. That's all I've done. So that's what I'll do. I'd have Liam Wilson from the second fight on the card to the fifth card on the fight on the card, and then obviously the main event. So yeah, after all that, all I've done is elevate Liam Wilson from fifth up to second. All right, so yeah, but I'm with you there, Naz, and maybe that's the reason why a lot of people are being turned off by it as well. All right, M&M. Where are we there, mate? Just noticed that John Manu is number 10 in the IBF rankings at 140. I did see that. And I did also, and I wasn't aware of this either, that Kamakao is actually rated, is it with the WBA? Let's have a quick look at that as well. Yeah, there you go. Number 13 with the WBA. What did you say there? Number 10 with John Manu with the IBF. Yeah, I think he has been ranked for the last couple of months, Eminem. But yeah, yeah, he could be in line for a title fight. You just don't know. All right, we'll move on. Ryan Gray, how are you, Ryan? Where's your comment there, mate? Hey all, I got Nikita by stoppage in the later rounds. I think Nikita's body shots will take a toll. He's good at level changing and packs a punch. Younger, hungry, and all that jazz. Good luck to both. And that's the thing, Ryan. I think Nikita could get Michael out of there later in the fight as well. I was going to say not too late, maybe 6th, 7th, 8th round, something like that. But again, it comes down to him being cautious. Well, not too cautious, but being cautious in that he's nice and tight, nice and tucked in, picks his punches, really methodical, I suppose, would do the job. He almost needs to take a leaf out of the way Tim used to fight, and probably still does to some extent, where very, very calculating and hunts down his opponent without getting loose. Because I got a feeling that Michael Zarafa is probably going to push the fight a little bit, try and expose Nikita's inexperience, and that could open Michael up and also play into Nikita's hands by not having to force the fight. So I've got a feeling that, Michael, the game plan will be, hey, he's inexperienced. He's probably going to be just a little bit nervous, even though he doesn't show it. Let's put it on him and try and get him a little bit out of his comfort zone early and maybe land a shot or whatever it might be. But I'm certainly with you there, Ryan. I think Nikita can win by stoppage in the later rounds. I haven't really factored in body shots, I will admit. I just think Michael tends to, and it showed in the Jeff Horn fight. This is probably another reason why I think Nikita can probably get him late as well, is that you look at the fight with Jeff Horn when the fatigue started to set in a little bit with Michael in that fight as well. He become flat-footed and become a real target for Jeff Horn. So many variables in this fight. This is why I really like it, Ryan, and I really like just all Aussie fights. I really do. So, and this one really gets me excited. It really does. Sorry, I just got a message on my phone there. Sorry, I got my attention taken away there. All right, so we've got Naz again. I'll get back on track in a minute here, guys. All right. I'm curious what the Brits would have said if they were asked to pay $70 to watch Campbell Hatton headline from his 6th fight on. Or the Yanks if it was Emiliano Vargas, both also the sons of legends. Yeah, good point there, Naz. I just think that, well, that wouldn't have worked over there, that's for sure. I've just got a feeling that No Limit aren't dumb. They realise the name carries so much weight in this country, and they just knew that the fascination would be there, and they knew that Aussies would pay it. And the only way, I suppose, it's not going to make them pay-per-view is if people don't pay it, and they obviously do. I mean, I was staggered when Tim actually had his first pay-per-view against Joel Camilleri. I remember thinking, with all due respect to Joel, you're actually going to charge people to watch Tim Tszyu fight Joel Camilleri? And they did. And every fight since then's been on pay-per-view. To answer your question there, though, Naz, I think the Brits would just have refused to pay it for Campbell Hatton. But, I was just going to say that maybe the Hatton name wasn't as big as in England as the Tszyu name is in Australia, but it is, or was 100% just as big. Just different fan bases, I think, Naz. I think in England, there's so many different choices over there, so many big fights all the time. It's a good question, though. If it was Emiliano Vargas, well, yeah, obviously not. Yeah, but I get it. It's a good question, but I just think Aussies, they've obviously been pretty happy to pay it, and that's why they've continued on. All right, we'll get back on track here. All right. What do we got here? Will you be tuning into the first Zuffa card in a few weeks? If so, what will be looking at barring the fights? If so, what we'll be looking at barring the fights? Do you believe it will be a good event? I think the event will be good, Ryan. I think they'll do it well. But, I mean, they haven't exactly instilled a lot of faith in the fans out there by doing it at the UFC Training Centre in a back room and the main event of Callum Walsh and Carlos Ocampo. I mean, really, really average first card. So they haven't exactly come out with a bang. I would have thought they might have taken their time. I mean, when you think about it, the Canelo and Crawford fight was sort of the first, or TKO/Zuffa boxing event, wasn't it? I know it's not, part of the calendar, but I wouldn't have minded if they had have actually taken the time a little bit more, and maybe even started mid-year and started to build the roster up. build up the main event or the main first event that is, and had a really big opening, and then they could maybe scale down after that and get back to these type of shows. But to come out with really a limp-wristed main event for the first card, Ryan, I just don't think it really jumps out at you and gives Oscar De La Hoya or Eddie Hearn or Frank Warren anything to really worry about at the moment. And it looks like they're going to, I think I said on Walking Boxing the other day, looks like they're just going to plant the seeds and water it and just let it grow over the journey. But I haven't exactly seen a lot of people counting down the days to that first Zuffa card, Ryan. So, and look, they are smart to some extent for having it the same weekend as the UFC. People in town, but the UFC fans, I remember, not really boxing fans. So, yeah, we'll see, mate. But yeah, not exactly coming out in a bursting out of the gates, are they? All right, still with Ryan. Zarafa's experience is undeniable. I believe youth trumps that in these types of matchups. Who knows? Again, good luck to both men. We all appreciate the entertainment. That's where I'm at too, Ryan. I just think, again, it's going to be a great fight. I think it's going to be back and forth. I think both are going to have their moments. I think it's going to be a bloody fight. Maybe both hit the deck. I don't know, but I'm with you there. There's probably another thing I'm looking at, Ryan, is that even though Michael's got the experience, what is he, 34 years of age and had 40 fights. This will be his 40th fight. And experience only counts for so much. When the bell rings or the lead up to the fight, experience is everything. You know, the build up and the open workouts and the press conferences and all the crap. Although Nikita's had that since his first fight as well. Let's not forget that Nikita's had 11 experiences of this as the main event. Well, nearly apart from one or two, I think he was on Tim's card, wasn't he? But he's had, say 10 fights of this type of thing where he's got open workouts, he's got press conferences, he's got all the interviews. He just hasn't done it on the massive stage. That's all, like Michael. And that'll give him some advantage a little bit going into the fight. But again, as soon as that bell rings, experience, in my opinion, doesn't really count for much at all. Maybe later in the fight. If we get to the 8th and 9th round and the fight's in the trenches, maybe the experience might come out in the fight where you're a little bit more composed and you pick your shots a little bit more, where the less experienced one might be desperate and punch himself out. All those little different things. But I'm with you, Ryan. I just think youth on this occasion will trump the experience of Michael Zarafa. Excuse me. All right. Drew. How are you, Drew? Sorry, went down the wrong way. Neither Nikita or Michael are known for being multi-dimensional fighters with great defense, nuance, and IQ, but I do feel like Zarafa has more of a semblance of all three over Nikita. I'm going to go with one of those. What does nuance mean? Can someone hang on? Do I have to Google it? I sort of know what it means. Let's just go by defense or IQ. I think it's 1-1. If nuance is the one you said and Zarafa's got it, well, all good. But I think defense, I think Michael has got a slight advantage over Nikita. But watch Michael; he does get tagged a fair bit as well. And I've always said he's probably flaw for me is he always pulls out with his chin up in the air, a little bit like Nikita does actually, and doesn't sort of move his head a lot, and he goes back in a straight line. But slight advantage to Michael Zarafa. But I actually think boxing IQ, I think I favour Nikita Tszyu. I think he's got very good IQ. Not to say Michael hasn't, but we're keeping score here, and I think Nikita has a slightly better IQ than Michael. So whatever nuance is, Drew, whoever has the more of that has the advantage, but let us know what it is. Is it just grace or style or something like that anyway? Whatever. All right, Drew, I can see why there's a Rafa pick surprises you because he has failed pretty badly in his 3 world title fights. But Nikita's opposition has been soft and has had limited fights as a pro and amateur. Yeah, you're right there, Drew. And look, everyone's going to have to choose one or the other. I think just on paper, it is a very, very even fight. But you've got to pick one way or another. I think there's a sway 55-45 one way or the other. And most of the people that pick Michael Zarafa just do it based on experience. And the fact that Nikita hasn't got a great defense. And then the ones that pick Nikita, it's all about maybe his boxing IQ, his speed, his power, and the fact that Michael has struggled against sort of more elite, talented type of fighter. So that's what makes it a great fight. All right. Drew. Sorry, these are all out of order, guys. I've given up trying to keep track of it, so forgive me if they're all out of order. The closer the Zoo versus Zarafa fight gets, the more I favour Zarafa. Interviews can be a dangerous barometer, but Zarafa seems much more dialed into the task at hand when they speak. He looks pretty calm, Drew, and you're right. The way he has spoken in the interviews and all that sort of stuff, you've got to favour him in that aspect. He does seem very, very relaxed, very confident. He hasn't really come out with anything controversial. Even the fights he had with Jeff Horn, with Hardman, all these international opponents he's had, there has been a little bit of that, that aggro that Michael gets, and I think he needs it to sort of keep him on edge and everything else. But in this one, he's been very, very relaxed about it, so maybe he knows something we don't. But this is probably the most calm and relaxed I've ever seen Michael in any of his fights. So we will see. Although he was pretty calm, apart from the fight they got into with Hardman, he did seem pretty calm in that as well. So look, this is why it's such a great fight, Drew. I just think it's going to be 50-50. Well, I'm probably more 51-49 in favour of Nikita. But again, as I said earlier, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Michael wins. But I've got to go with one or the other. What's that? You got very little confidence picking Zarafa, and I've only started to change my mind recently. One thing that never gets mentioned is Nikita hitting the canvas at least 3 or 4 times versus limited guys. And not just that, Drew, getting rocked badly in some of those fights that he didn't actually hit the deck. So out of the 11 fights he's had, he's probably been in trouble probably in 7 or 8 of those fights. So you're right, that gives you, well, you said there you've slightly leaned towards Michael Zarafa because of that, and I'm certainly not going to argue with that, mate. But again, we've got to go one way or the other. I'm going to still stick with my man Nikita, but it's definitely going to be a 50-50 fight, that's for sure. Won't be surprised at all if Nikita wins, but his leaky defense really concerns me. Nikita's best chance for me is an early KO, but I feel Nikita is far too one-dimensional in his style as well. There's probably one area where I probably disagree a little bit, Drew. I think Nikita has got some different dimensions. You watch him in some of his fights. He's got, when he decides to, when he is patient and uses or has composure and everything else, he actually has got okay head movement. Really picks his shots. Very deadly when he really lands precisely. And I just think his speed and precision is going to be the difference for me against Michael Zarafa. I think Michael's there to be hit. I know Nikita's there to be hit as well. But I think that Michael, again, hasn't got overly great head movement either. And I think if he stands in front of Nikita, then he could be in trouble. I see, again, I'll go over this in depth on Friday morning, but I think that if Michael actually stands in front of Nikita and wants to take Nikita on, I think it spells all sorts of trouble for Michael Zarafa. If he does what he did against Isaac Hardman, where, again, an inexperienced fighter, good fighter, can punch and everything else, but inexperienced, he let Isaac come to him, lulled him in, and then nailed him with that big left hook on the counter. Would he maybe do the same thing against Nikita, where he sort of gets on his bike a little bit, lets Nikita come to him, and then tries to nail him coming in like he did against Isaac Hardman? Because I think that's his best chance. I think if he stands in center ring and tries to take Nikita on, okay, the possibility is there he could land one as well, but I think that is very, very dangerous for him if he stands right in front of Nikita. Asbot, can't believe so many folks out there writing Nikita off because he hasn't been tested. I agree, Zarafa has been tested and lost every time he stepped up. What has he really proven? Nikita by late KO. Really good look at it too, Asbot, and that's probably my opinion as well. And again, I said about the experience thing. I think Nikita has been tested, and I think he's come through. I know he's had lesser guys that have hurt him, but he's come through all of those challenges, whether they've been on the level or not, the opponents. He's still come through. He's been hurt. He's been rocked. He's had his moments, but he's come through. So that is a big test. He's got a lot of heart and can recover from being hurt. And you're right about Michael. He has been tested, but those big fights, when he has been tested, he hasn't been around the mark. And that's probably what I've always stood by, is that, and I've always said that it's one thing fighting the best, but it's one thing to be competitive or beating the best. And unfortunately, again, I'll spell it out like I have a few times. Michael hasn't been competitive against the best fighters he's fought. That's just fact. So that's where I reckon the balance sort of shifts back to Nikita. Anyway, so many intangibles, as I said earlier, and questions, and All sorts of things come into it. But isn't it great? There's so many points of view to this, which that's what makes a great fight and a great build-up. Shadow Boxer, how are you, Shadow Boxer? Surprised at all the people picking Zarafa. We all know the universal truth with boxing. Styles make fights. Nikita is all wrong for Zarafa's style. And that's where I agree with you, Shadow Boxer, 100%. The styles I'm talking about, not accolades. Zarafa will be run over eventually. Okay. Sorry about these comments too, guys. They will get back on track eventually. Richard, hang on. I'm going to find your first comment here because I reckon this is your second one. All right. No Limit must know the finer, deeper stats, I reckon. Would love to know myself on what percentage of views and revenues are casuals, which explains the push on footy players as it gets the exposure. Yes, they must know. Look, I think it wouldn't take them looking at the stats to realise that if they put a rugby player on with a very, very good profile, that there's going to be a lot of those people that tune in. I don't like it. I don't, Richard, but I understand why they do it. I don't like the fact they've got a guy who's a rugby league player who said, how hard can it be? I love boxing. I'll jump in there and have a go. And not that they've just put him on. They put him on well up the card as well. So, as I said, I don't think they need to look at the deep stats. They will just know, just judging by, the profile of rugby league up in Sydney and Brisbane, and even down here in Melbourne, maybe, even though it's not a big sport here in Melbourne, maybe they're looking at the fact he played with the Melbourne Storm, all that sort of stuff. Look, I don't know. Look, my opinion is, and everyone knows I'm an AFL man through and through, but let's just say Patrick Cripps, the captain of Carlton, if he turned pro and was going to have a fight, and I wasn't really a boxing fan, I was a football fan, I don't think I'd be buying or spending $70 to watch pay-per-view to watch Patrick Cripps fight. I'd be probably looking at the YouTube replay later or the highlights, whatever it might be, but I wouldn't be rushing out to pay $70. So that's why I don't understand why they're putting all their eggs in that basket. But again, I can understand their logic by thinking, was a rugby league player, Brisbane, Sydney, and even Melbourne markets might be attracted to it. I don't know. I think you either want to watch the fight or you don't. I think you're tuning in to see Zarafa and Zoo, and the rugby league side of things would just be a bit of a bonus. What's that? Would love to know myself on what percentage of views and revenues are casuals. Yeah, I'd love to know. Well, do they actually release the numbers, Richard? I'm not sure they do. Still the second part of that comment. Otherwise, it makes no sense showcasing crossover athletes over boxers themselves. Either way, I want No Limit to succeed, and I hope they have a backup plan other than the Zoos. Well, good question good comment actually in that last bit there, Richard. What is the backup plan after the Zoos? Because let's just say, heaven forbid, Nikita Zoo gets beaten by Michael Zarafa on Friday night. Tim doesn't really get back to where he was, and the Australian fans sort of lose faith in him and jump off. Not much coming through, Richard. There's not much at all. I mean, I don't think they're going to get behind Michael Zarafa because I don't think people pay to watch Michael Zarafa unless it is against someone like a Nikita Zoo or a Tim Zoo or someone like that. I don't think Michael Zarafa sells pay-per-views by himself as a standalone fighter. And you probably see there hasn't been any coincidence that with all the No Limit shows he's been on, he's never been the main event. He's always been the co-main. So they've used him to help sell it, but not the whole thing. So, or they've used him to help sell the overall card, but they haven't put him up in lights to carry the show himself because people just won't pay it. I'm with you. I want No Limit to succeed, but as far as backup plans goes, mate, I don't know. And this has probably been my biggest fault on No Limit is there has been no backup plan. I don't think, in my opinion anyway, I don't think they've had a pathway program at all. That's what the No Limit on Fox events should have been. It should have been all the young up-and-comers being on those cards. A little bit like Top Rank and all that do overseas with the Friday night fights, ESPN and all that sort of stuff, where they would do the cards with the prospects on them. No Limit haven't done that. And they had every ability to do that with those No Limit on Fox events, but also the undercards themselves. Have that pathway system come through. And I'll use an example of someone like a Cooper O'Connell and forget the fact that, I saw him overseas and know Shannon and him really, really well. Just use him as an example. Forget all that. You've got an Australian youth world champion who won the title last year or 2024, whatever it was, turns pro. He should be the one they're signing and putting on the No Limit on Fox or on the No Limit main event pay-per-view cards and using him to slowly build up and promoting him. But he hasn't been seen. Haven't been signed. He hasn't been on any of the cards. I know he has been on No Limit cards, but on like the first or second fight, out of mind, out of view, out of mind, whatever it is, whatever they say. So he's a classic example of where they failed. They're the type of fighters they should be starting and using that pathway, and they just haven't done it. They've put all the eggs in the zoo basket, and not just Tim and Nikita, but a little bit of Liam Paro, Liam Wilson, Sam Goodman maybe. But neither of those guys are going to be big pay-per-view sellers. So where's the next star going to come from? So it's got me buggered. And look, if I was in No Limit shoes, I'd be going and trying to break bread with the Mick Francis of the world at Tasman Fighters and try and get in with Jai Pattaya and Justice Huni. I know they've sort of gone that way with Ace Boxing, and they've got Liam Paro and maybe Dempsey McKean, but again, not real stars. So yeah, it's really bewildering to me, Richard, why. And look, maybe the reason why is, by the way, is that they've been good at putting on overall events. Great, you can't fault the events they've put on, but some of the content sometimes is lacking. And even though sometimes they might have some exciting fights on, they're really nothing fights. They might be entertaining, but they don't really have fighters in there that they're investing in or having that pathway through to the big cards. You've got to build main event fighters or pay-per-view fighters. Now, they struck gold with the Zoos because they went straight into pay-per-views. But what stars have they really built since then? None. And meanwhile, even though they're off Broadway, Jai Pattaya and Justice Huni are superstars. Well, not superstars, but they are stars. Jai should be a superstar, but he's not. I don't know why they wouldn't be trying to sit down with all the big promoters in Australia and try and work with them and use their talent to boost their own numbers, boost their own figures, all that sort of stuff. Just think they've closed house or closed shop and they've paid for it, or whether they have paid, they will pay going forward when the Zoos are no longer there. I really don't know where the next star's coming from. But anyway, I'll just grab a drink there. All right, Tony, how are you there, mate? I'll be going to my local to watch the fight. I've been Minister of Propaganda for Michael Zarafa at the pub for the last couple of weeks, so he better win, or I'll never be able to show my face there again. Well, mate, it's good to see fans like you getting there that will be supporting Michael Zarafa, because I would think that probably 80% of people watching the fights will be going for Nikita Zoo, although I said in my video this morning that I think there has been a few that have jumped off, but and maybe jumped on Michael Zarafa. But, yep, fly the flag for him, mate. He's going to need a bit of support. And he's a Melbourne boy, so get down and support him if you're from Melbourne. Where are we there? Eminem. Is a 60-40 split fair to Virgil versus Boots? I don't think so, Eminem. I think I did read about that today, that Eddie Hearn actually replied to Oscar De La Hoya's remarks about the split. And if you didn't see it, Oscar De La Hoya said 60-40, that's our final offer. 5% of extra goes to the winner. So if, say, Virgil Ortiz won, he would get 65 and Boots would get 35. If Boots won, he would get 45 and Virgil 55. But then Eddie Hearn has come out and said, well, hang on, that's not exactly true. We actually sat down, had a really good meeting. Boots Ennis actually signed a contract, apparently, according to Eddie, to say 50-50 and the extra 5% goes to the winner. And apparently it was all agreed upon, but Virgil Ortiz did not sign his contract. And now Oscar has come out and said, no, it's not 50-50, it's 60-40, take it or leave it. So who do you believe? Oscar actually, even though he said 60-40, never said that they'd agreed to 50-50, by the way. He just, 60-40 is the split and 5% to the winner. That's our offer. Where Eddie's the one that said, no, well, that's not right because it was 50-50 with the extra 5% to the winner. I think it's fair for 50-50, Eminem. I think it's that type of fight. You've got to remember, Virgil Ortiz has never been a world champion. Boots Ennis has. I probably agree that Virgil Ortiz is a slightly bigger name than Boots, although that's arguable as well. I think 50-50 in this. Look, what they should do, and even if it's not quite fair in either of their minds, or especially in Oscar's mind, because he's the one that wants more for Virgil Ortiz, for the sake of just getting the fight done, to sit down and say, well, this is where I'm probably supporting Eddie here. Hey, it's 50-50. We'll give the winner the extra 5%. That will decide who deserves the bigger payday. But on paper, let's make it 50-50. And then whoever wins, they get the cream on top and takes 5% of the other fighter's purse. I think that is more than fair. To think that Boots Ennis could beat Virgil Ortiz and make 10%, still 10% less than him, because it will be 55-45, I think is ridiculous. So I'm going to side with Eddie Hearn on this one, Eminem. That is the fair split, 50-50. All right, Eminem, I've got a bad feeling for Friday's night that Zarafa stops Nikita. Too soon for Nikita, maybe, and his hand could pack it in early. Intriguing fight nonetheless. Well, that's something that we haven't even factored in, Eminem, is Nikita's hand. What happens if he lands a big punch early and cracks the hand or whatever he did to it? What happens then? Again, that's why this fight's so intriguing. So intriguing. So many questions that have to be answered. Bacon and Egg says they should go 45-45. Winner takes the extra 10%. That's Boots. I'm assuming that's Boots and Ortiz. That's not a bad idea either, Bacon and Eggs. I agree. I just think whatever it comes down to, the split on the surface should be 50-50. Whether it's 45-45, 50-50, 40-40, and 20% to the winner, I don't care. But the actual split to start should be 50-50. Well, even I'm talking about. So not 50%, 50%, but just even, an even amount. And then whatever's left over goes to the winner. That's the best way to do it. And I mean, Oscar De La Hoya is saying he wants to give the fans the biggest fights. Well, this should be easy to make. Eddie Hearn saying, well, Boots signed his contract and Virgil Ortiz chose not to, and now you've changed the goal or moved the goalpost. So I'm definitely siding with Eddie Hearn on this one. Furian Survivor. What are your thoughts on Ajit Caballel? He looked a little rusty yesterday after a year out, but what a body puncher. He also has a huge following in Germany. Well, I think he could be a dangerous fighter for Alexander Usyk, Furian. I really do. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the type of fighter that Usyk stays away from for now. Maybe after he fights Wilder, if Caballel gets another win or two under his belt. He did look a little rusty. I'm a fan. I'm just not sure whether he's really at the level. Or is he someone like a Hrgovic or something that looks good against the lesser lights but then steps up and really struggles. So, yeah, look, I'd like to see him in a big fight first for him before we can really make any assumptions on him. I want to see him. I know he's had a couple. Actually, what's his record? I'll have a quick look. Caballel. So what is he? 27-0. I'm just looking to see some of the quality of opponents he's fought. He looks a lot like Justice Honey to me. Oh yeah, so he beat obviously Zhang, Frank Sanchez. I forgot about that one. That was only a couple of years ago too. Apart from that, I don't think he's had. Oh, Derek Chisora. Yep, that's right. When was that? Yeah, about 7 or 8 years ago. Been around a while. They need to step him up for him. So I want to see him in with a top 10 ranked opponent. And I know he's beaten Zhang and Sanchez, but I want to see a top liner. Then we'll see. Maybe a Dubois, or I suppose he could be an opponent for Wardley as well. Maybe. He is the WBC, interim heavyweight champion now, isn't he? So, yeah, lots of options for him, mate. But he goes okay. But again, I want to see him against a real top line contender. 3-piece and a soda. How are you there, mate? We'll just call you soda. It's a long wait, but in May there is a huge domestic matchup between 2025 KO of the Year winner Andrew Hunt and Benjamin Hussein. Who wins that one? Yes, good question there, Soda. I think I was asked about this one the other day. Good matchup. I would still think Andrew Hunt wins that fight, though. Soda, I'm just going to bring up. Have they got the card on BoxRec at the moment? I haven't had a look. Oh, yeah, they have. All right, so it is May the 8th at the Hyatt Place Event Centre. Oh, okay, Sam LaBruna. Oh, okay, all right, okay. Yep, I know this card. So it is the card that features Ibrahim Bala as well. It's got Jack Bowen on the card against Tongo. That'll be actually a really good fight. We've got Chloe Chaos against Ariane Biancao. I don't really know much about her. And I've heard on the grapevine that Ibrahim Bala could have a very good domestic opponent in that one. I won't spill the beans just yet, but it could be a very, very good fight with Abraham Bella. But for that one, I'm going to stick with Andrew Hunt there, Soda. I think he can possibly even stop Ben Hussein. What's to go with Benjamin Hussein, and who's he been calling out recently? McIntyre. Max McIntyre. Lots of things going back and forth there. But Hunt and Hussein is, I think, is probably just as good a fight. But I'm going to stick with Andrew Hunt to win that one. All right, Glenn. Evening all. Had a nice little win with Dalton Smith. Okay. I felt that Matthias would have his Joe Joyce moment and be found out. Nice to get one right. Yeah, well, good call, Glenn. I didn't think he could do it. I thought he's a little bit one-dimensional for Matthias. I thought that Matthias would pick him apart and end up probably stopping him or maybe winning a one-sided decision. But I was surprised at the toughness. Well, not surprised at the toughness of Dalton Smith because he's shown that in the past. But I was surprised that he hung in there for so long after taking so many bombs from Matthias. I know he gave a lot back as well. But yeah, I was surprised that he was the one that actually outlasted Matthias, and good on him. Excellent win, and he's got some good fights coming up. I'm glad you had a win there, Glenn. All right, well, you're on a roll. What's this one? Second pick, Nikita stops Michael. That's my opinion too, Glenn. Makes me feel a little bit better considering you've just picked Smith over Matthias. LOB picking Zarafa. I think he frustrates Zoo into mistakes in the middle rounds with clinching inside and finds openings for uppercuts and hooks. He can't be content to just let Nikita pick his punches. Yes, good call. Yep, I don't mind that, LOB. Is he a smart enough fighter to do that, LOB? I suppose I'm looking at the fight he had with Jeff Horn, and that's exactly what he did, didn't he? He just picked him apart over the duration and then stopped him in the 9th round. Could he do the same against Nikita Zoo? But that was also 6.5 years ago as well. So he's obviously a little bit older since then. Yeah, no, it's not a bad way to look at it, mate. What do we got here? D&E Pasquala. Does Josh Kelly have a chance against Barkram? Yes, I think he does. Pasquala, I'll call you there. I think he does. I think Josh Kelly has a good chance against Barkram. I think we all get a little bit caught up in Barkram's win against Tim Zoo. Now, let's not forget either, he hasn't fought since he beat Tim. What was that, about 14 or 15 months ago? Hasn't fought since. I'm just trying to look at Josh Kelly. When's the last time he fought? Where are we there? Josh Kelly. The pretty boy. All right. 17-1-1. So he hasn't fought since June last year. So it's a lot better than October of 2024, though, isn't it? Coming off a first-round knockout as well. Yes, I think he has a chance, Pasquale. And I think we've got to look at a little bit like what's happened even on the weekend with Dalton Smith and Sabrina Matthias. Matthias, similar reputation as Barkram, as they say, the boogeyman. Just tends to bomb people out and just beats them down over the journey. I think if Josh Kelly can survive the first 3, 4, 5 rounds against Barkram, I think he can pick the pace up and give Barkram a fight. Will he beat him? I still think I'm going to stick with Barkram Murtazaliev, but I think Josh Kelly is a big chance in the fight, 100%. All right, Richard, Big Georgie Rose will charge us $100 if we complain about it. $50 is perfect, but well, yeah, well, that's the other thing, Richard. Is it a matter of just having to pay for the card in general, or is it the fact that we actually have to pay $70? I'd like to hear the difference, whether people would pay $50. Because have they left a lot of money on the table by having a shitload of people say, no, I'm just not going to buy it. I'll go down and get it at the pub or illegally stream it or do whatever. Are they the same people that might have paid $50 and they could have had a shitload more people buy it and they would have made more money but charged less? It's an interesting one. Yeah, do they reckon they read the room, Richard? Obviously, they keep going with it because people are paying it. Somewhere along the line, people are paying for these fights. If not, No Limit would be out of business. So, yeah, I don't know, Richard, but yeah, $50 is the sweet spot. Well, maybe there needs to be more people letting No Limit know. Hang on, that's Glenn. Good question about Kelly. Is Barkram a bit overrated based on his destruction of Tim? Yeah, I'm not reading too much into the Tim Zoo fight, Glenn. I think too many people are just saying Barkram's sort of unbeatable. He's been in some fights where he's been in competitive fights. I think, in my opinion, with the Tim Zoo fight, we've been over this a million times. I think Tim just was careless, didn't respect Barkram Murtazaliev enough, got caught with that first hook and then just couldn't recover. I don't think Josh Kelly will make that mistake. I think he'll box smart for a few rounds, and then hopefully he'll be looking to pick the pace up in the middle of rounds once maybe the steam has sort of gone out of Buckram a little bit, and maybe look to maybe pile up some rounds later in the fight and take it on points. But is he overrated? Maybe. Based on the destruction of Tim. I think so, Glenn. I just think... I don't think he's an overrated fighter, but I think he's been elevated maybe to a little bit better than what he actually is based on that fight with Tim, for sure. Yep, I do. Tony Ajit Kabiel fighting Justice Honey reminds me as a kid watching Collingwood play North Melbourne on a black and white TV. You couldn't tell them apart. Ajit and Justice could be brothers. That's what I said, mate. I watched some footage and seen some pictures. I thought, geez, that looks like Justice Honey. All right, Drew. I was justified in my thoughts that Matthias was always heavily overhyped. From the first time I saw him, I always thought he was far too defensively irresponsible and people thought I was crazy. Well, it's a good call, Drew, because he was reckless. I think if he had been a little bit more, I was going to say cautious. I know it's not really his style, but maybe be not as careless as he was, because he was throwing great punches. He just had no defense when the punches were coming back at him. I thought he hurt Dalton Smith a few times, landed numerous punches on him, but the problem was he was landing good punches and then not moving or covering up or doing anything apart from just waiting for the receipt, and he got it. And when he got caught with that right hand, the legs buckled, and then the big right hand finished him. So, all right, Paul Michael Craig. We'll call you Paul. Who are your picks in the heavyweight fights on the Nikita Zarafa card? All right, well, let's have a quick look there, Paul. I'll go back to the card. I can find it. All right. So the heavyweights, where are we? I'm going to back Dempsey McKeon to beat Tuasu Vasuatu on points. Be a tough fight, though. Dangerous fight for Dempsey, by the way. I'm not sure. Has he fought? I think he has fought since... Yeah, he has. Yep. I'm going to say, has he fought since Otoma knocked him out? One fight in July last year against a very suspect opponent. Ivic and Taliva. That's a good fight, isn't it? I'm going to go for Taliva in that one, Paul. Not with a lot of confidence, though. But I think I'll go with him on points over Ivic. And I'll go for McKeon on points over Vasuatu. Are they the only heavyweights on there? The rugby player. Well, of course he's going to win, Paul. Probably by first round knockout. There you go. Massive prediction. The rugby league player wins by first round knockout. But the others, yeah, McKeon and Taliva for me. All right, Eminem, what is 5 top-line fights on your wish list for 2026? Mine are Bivol versus Benavides, Opataya versus Zerdo, Inoue versus Nakatani, Kabiel versus Usyk, Fury versus AJ, honourable mention, Mason versus Shukua. I would say Opataya versus Benavides is definitely my number one, Eminem. Now you're going to have to make me go through the divisions. Just quickly, I'll go through it. I would like to see Wardley versus Fury. I don't think you can count AJ at this stage, mate. I think he's out of the equation. So Wardley versus Fury. What was the other one? Yeah, Opataya versus Benavides. I'm just looking at super middleweights. Not much there. Not much at middleweight. Here we go. Fundora and Ortiz. I'd rather see Fundora against Ortiz than... Well, Boots would be great. A great fight, I suppose. But I'm liking Fundora and Ortiz as a great fight. Or Murtazaliev, one of those guys. Either one of them. I wouldn't mind seeing Rolly Romero against Conor Benn, Eminem. I'm not sure that's going to make my top 5, but I reckon that'll be an entertaining fight. Romero and Conor Benn. Now, the winner of Lopez and Stevenson. Actually, I'll take that back. No, hang on. Where are we? Lightweight. No, I was going to say Tank Davis, but where's he at? Well, obviously, in a way, Nakatani. Have I answered all of them there, Eminem? I think so. Yeah, I think I've got it there anyway. So what did I say? Opatai, Benavides, Inoue, Nakatani, Wardley, Fury, Ben versus Roller Ramiro, and what was the other one? I don't know. Pick one of the other ones I said. I won't spend too much time on it. Glenn, lots of good fights to be made out there, though, Eminem. Liam Taliva will get the heavyweight title. Yep, I think so. Mate. Forget to keep mentioning this. I love the Arlen Norton poster in the background. Oh, yeah, there it is. Sorry, can you see it there? Hang on, I'll step back. Oh, the light's probably in the road. Yep. Actually signed by Kenny Norton there. It says to Lynden, God bless Kenny Norton, right there. Sorry about the light reflecting there. I have the same one myself. Surely you have an Aussie all poster poster for your background, Truck versus Green or something. No, I don't actually, Big J. I've got Pacquiao and Hatton up here. That was there. Well, that's it because it was my first ever fight that I went to. The gloves in the background there. Is that the only one? Yeah, good call, Big J. How can I call myself an Australian YouTuber or boxing YouTuber? I don't have an Aussie one. If I was going to get one though, I might see if I can get one off eBay. Lester Ellis, Barry Michaels, probably the one I would get to have up there for the All Aussie one. I think that's my favourite All Aussie fight of all time, Big J. Drew, not sure why people didn't pick up on the hints of Matias' shortcomings after the Paro fight. It felt like people had short memories. Yeah, to some extent, Drew. But I actually thought he looked really good against Puello. I was really impressed in that fight. Now, similar type of thing, back and forth the whole way. It's just that Puello probably didn't have the staying power and the power. Well, not that Dalton Smith's a big puncher, but he has got a bit of pop in his punches, obviously. So yeah, I actually was impressed with Matias against Puello, but yeah, I was surprised that that Smith was able to get him out of there. Yeah, you're right there, Glenn. Matias's aura was broken after the Paro fight. Yeah, that might explain why the likes of Puello and Smith both neither had hesitation in throwing down with him, did they? Just that Smith got the job done and Puello didn't. Eminem, the world could be Nikita's oyster if he makes a statement versus Arafa. Yeah, it depends on how he does it too, though, Eminem. If he does it in an all-out war and gets dropped and hurt and cut and everything else, well, maybe he's still not ready for the world level. But as far as making money and getting big fights, 100% the world could be his oyster for sure, Eminem. Fighting at 160, no, they're fighting at 157, Glenn. Catch weight, 157. Drew, I didn't buy into Matias when he was undefeated. I always felt he was prepared to take too many shots to land his shots. Yeah, well, it's a good call, Drew, and everything's good in sort of hindsight, isn't it? I remember when he fought the Russian. What was his name? And he got absolutely towed up for the first 3 or 4 rounds, and then he just hung in there, and the Russian ran out of steam, and he got him out of there. Where's that? Hang on, I'll just type it in here. Sabriel Matias. All right. Now the Russian. I remember looking at that first couple of rounds, thinking, "Geez." Shoyahan and Ergashev was his name, and he retired after the 6th round. And I know he has fought since then 3 times. He's lost one fight actually. Again, everything's good in hindsight, Glenn. Drew. But I thought he was not as good as everyone said, but I did expect him to get past Dalton Smith. 157 could benefit Nikita more than Zarafa. That's a very good question as well, and Eminem, and that's probably one thing that hasn't really been considered either, has it? Does it favour either fighter? I think Nikita will benefit because he's not going to boil down to 154. It's 1.5 kilos if you're looking at those measurements. So it will be good for him as far as that goes. For Michael Zarafa, you would think maybe been slightly weakened by it, but apparently he walks around not that far over 160 anyway. So you would have thought, it's an extra, half an hour in the sauna or something to get that extra 3 pounds off. So I'm not that stressed about it. If it was going to favour either one of them, I would say Nikita by coming up and just being a little bit stronger. So I think he could easily fight at 160. Nikita, he's a pretty solid type of guy. J Beebs. The crowd in Germany went absolutely nuts during the KBL, is it KBL or KBL? KBL win. Was watching a fight in Europe was watching a fight in Europe ever on your bucket list? Not really, J Beebs. I'd love to go to England and watch a fight. I'm not so stressed about Germany or anywhere else in Europe. I'm sure it'd be good, but it's just not on my bucket list. No. I've been to fights, pretty much all over the world, but I'd love to go to a big fight in England. I think it'd be great. Like a Fury fight or AJ or Wardley, Dubois even. So, yeah, no, I'd love to do that, mate. I think even a fight in Japan would be great. With one of those big guys on the card, Inoue or Nakatani. Drew, those reckless chin-dependent guys are always dangerous until they're not. Yeah, well, it's a good point, Drew. You're dangerous until you're not dangerous. Naz says, I'd love to see Schofield versus Mason. Yep, and Otama versus Cabial, but that one may be better off later. Yeah, I didn't actually mention Otama. Who would be... Him and Torres wouldn't be a bad fight either. Naz, Otama. And Cabial obviously would be a war. Yeah, I think actually I might have mentioned Schofield and Mason in my list of fights I'd like to see the other day. Maybe I did that for my list of when I did it on walking boxing. So maybe that would be on there, Naz. I had Floyd, Schofield and Mason as well. So, yeah, good fights. Glenn, great crowd at the fight. Ajit, good but not yet great. Got hit way too much with right hooks and overhands. Yeah, he does leave himself open a little bit sometimes, Glenn. Yeah, I want to know more about this, Richard. I must admit I haven't delved too much into it. This is apparently Joel Camilleri has a fight coming up overseas, and I've got a feeling it's going to be a big name opponent there, Richard. I might just type in. He hasn't let it slip yet, and as I said, I haven't really delved into it too much. I'll just see if I can find anything on the net just quickly, whether someone's leaked it. No, it says he's in negotiations for an overseas showdown. Nope, doesn't say anything about it. No, we'll keep moving. Yeah, I'm interested to see who it's going to be though, Richard, because I've got a feeling it's a pretty big name, because the way Joel sort of spoke about it, it was like, look, I realise this is a massive mountain to get over. I'm not sure those exact words, but along those lines, but I'm going to give it my best shot. I need to take a chance. So yeah, I think he's going to be a pretty big name. We'll see. All right, Eminem, the 160 division could be wide open shortly, depending on the Janabek findings and Lara nearing the end. Yes, could be too. Who is the next one? Well, Adames is probably going to have it all to himself, isn't he? There's not really much around at 160, is there? You look at some of the fighters down there. You've got, geez, I'm looking through the rankings there. Chris Eubank Jr., that's about it. Yeah, Amo Williams, he's got a fight coming up too, hasn't he? Jesus Ramos, probably the only other one. Not a lot happening at 160, unfortunately, especially with those two, with asterisks beside their names as well. All right, Drew, No Limit have a hell of a lot riding on in the key to victory. No matter how hard you spin it, No Limit and the broadcasters are heavily pushing the Zoo wheelbarrow. They are. They've got a lot riding on it, Drew, and that's why I think reluctantly they've wanted the Michael Zarafa fight with Nikita, because I understand that it's a very, very risky fight, but I also think that they need a big fight for themselves, for the back pocket as well. All right, Naz would also like to see Sam Goodman get a big fight against either MJ or Cardenas if he's staying at 122. Well, from what I saw Naz, I wouldn't be surprised if he stays at 126. I think he said he felt nice and strong at the weight. I think there could be some bigger fights there for him. I think the 122-pound title is going to be held up for a little while. Of course, we've got Nakatani and Inouye, and then there's no guarantees that Sam will be the next one on the starting grid, although you'd think at some stage one of those belts might come up for grabs, that they won't be able to maintain all the mandatories. But I wouldn't mind seeing him at 126. I know he come up short against Nick Ball, but I would think I'd give him a pretty good chance against Eduardo Nunes, Dazza Dickens, or no, hang on, that's junior lightweight. Sorry, what am I looking at here? Sorry, wrong division. There we go. Angelo Leo. Bruce Carrington would be a tough one. He's the interim champion. Vargas is a champion in recess. Rafael Espinoza is winnable as well. So, look, I don't know. Either way, there's some tough fights out there for him, Naz, but I think 126, he might have a better chance of winning a world title. What's that? Nikita and Zarafa grand arrivals are on right now. There you go. All right, I'll check that out after we get off here. What's that, Richard? I wonder if it's a Zulfikar, but he did say it's a great opportunity. Oh, is that the Joel Camilleri fight? Yeah, well, that would make sense too, that he's going to be on the Zulfikar. Yep. All right, Naz, I'm just comparing this card featuring an NRL player compared to the Tasman shows, for example. All fights interesting and featuring some of our best. Yes. Well, have a quick look at the card again. Did we go through it all? Oh, no, I didn't know. It was just before. Yeah. I think they're both probably the same, Naz. I wasn't overly excited about the Tasman card either. But I get it, you know, and No Limit's the same. They've got A-side fighters they've got to build. If they put them in 50-50 fights against or fighters that aren't part of the promotional firm, it's probably not good business. So I get it why they're doing it, but this is probably why they need to work in with the other promoters. This is No Limit I'm talking about, because they could have their good fighters against other promoters' good fighters, and maybe there's options. Whoever wins those fights that they have to sign with the winner's promotional firm. I don't know. There's lots of ways they could do it. I just think they're a little bit inexperienced in the business of boxing. That's all, and they're just missing the signs. Right. G'day, Mutzi. Wardley versus Caballero would be a good stink. It'd be a pretty entertaining affair, Mutzi, to be on, wouldn't it? Should be. I don't know. I reckon Caballero would win that fight. Again, styles make fights. I think Wardley's not going to get away with just standing in front of Caballero, I wouldn't have thought. And whoever said it before, he goes well to the body as well. So, yeah, I think Caballero would win that fight, but just to be entertaining, that's for sure. Drew, not sure who No Limit will heavily promote if Nikita loses. They'll still do the best to promote Zoo ×2 plus a Rafa, but right now the hope seems mainly on Nikita. Oh no, they'd be praying that Tim Tszyu comes back to where he was, Drew. They'd be absolutely praying for it. But I still think they need to invest in other fighters, or at least, as I said, work in with other promoters. Maybe even try and poach a fighter or two. There's some really good fighters out there that aren't on the No Limit stable, and I think I've seen it pointed out numerous times. I think Big J, you might have been one, that No Limit have never had a world champion, like an actual guy that's won the belts. Tim Tszyu was given the WBO 154-pound title, but none of their fighters have actually won the world title in a fight while under the banner of No Limit. So there's a little bit of pressure on them. They get the fighters opportunities, I'll give them that. All the gun fighters or top-level fighters all get opportunities. But for one reason or not, they're not getting the chocolates. But I suppose that's not No Limit's problem, is it? Their job is to promote the guys and give them the opportunities they're after. That's why they sign with them, and the rest is up to the fighters and their teams. But I reckon they'd be sweating on, especially Liam Paro. I think they'd be probably putting the eggs in the Liam Paro basket as well. I would think that if Nikita gets beat this weekend and Tim's not really there yet, so Tim's still got plenty of gas in the tank anyway. I think, Drew. I think they can get a lot more mileage out of him. Don't worry about that. James says, I think Nikita will be caught early, and that's all she wrote. Well, it's possible. That's for sure. It's possible. Tony, question. Is 25% of a boxer's winning purse too much to be paid to the trainer, or is that about the average amount? I've always wondered how much of the purse goes into the boxer's bank account. Yeah, well, it varies, Tony. Don't forget you got the manager involved in that as well. And if the fighters fight on a show that doesn't feature on their own promoter's card, sometimes they pay a little bit as well, I think, or does the other promoter have to pay them? I can't remember, but either way, and then you got tax on top of that as well. So I think 25% might be a fraction high for a trainer's purse, but a manager can take up to a third. So they could lose 60% of their purse just in fees, charges, taxes, and all that sort of stuff, Tony. It's not great. I mean, it's not too bad when you're earning $20 or $30 million, but if you're only earning 20 or 30 grand, it's a hell of a lot to take out there, mate. But a lot of what we got to also remember too is that the trainer supplies, most of the time supplies all the gauze and the tape and the Vaseline and adrenaline. They most of the time supply that, or they have to bill the fighter for that as well. But most of the time the trainers don't charge the fighters for all the work they put in. So it could be, an 8 or 10 week camp. The trainer's got to give them everything. So I've got no dramas with the trainer taking a good percentage, and then the manager taking his cut as well, because most of the time they've got to get the work to get the fight. You got to remember it's a business almost, Tony, and they're all shareholders. Yes, the fighter deserves to get the majority of the share because he's the one that's in there taking all the risks. But then again, the trainer the trainer especially does a hell of a lot of work. Managers maybe not so much, but they're also just getting a percentage of what they're getting for their fighter. So I know it doesn't sound fair, and I know a lot of fighters and fans that are out there think that the manager and trainer take too much. But again, it's a joint business affair. And now, if you're going to, my opinion, if it was 100% of the purse, I think a fighter should earn 60% of that purse. That's my opinion. Now the 40% should be split between whoever else is involved. But the fighter should earn 60%. And the trainer and the manager would also have to pay tax as well, you would think, as well. So it's got to be pre-tax. So I know it's not ideal, but end of the day, I think 60% is about right, I would think, for a fighter for what they earn. Maybe 65. All right. Jack. Remember how Zarafa came out 2 days before the Hardman fight calling Hardman a racist? It really threw Hardman off. I expect something similar this week. Yeah, that was a real low blow, Jack. And that did actually get Isaac a little bit off his game, if you ask me, because he made a big point after that of denying it. And look, Michael Zarafa really grasping at straws in that. I was really disappointed in that, if I'm being honest, Jack. I thought it was a real low blow from Michael when he said because Michael is Maltese, that Hardman was a racist. I don't know. Maltese, are they people of colour? I thought they were like Italian or Greek sort of heritage. Can you be racist to them? Anyway, whatever it might be. We're getting off track here, but Hardman should have laughed that off and said, mate, you were just a tool. But he actually, it really got to him. And you see that Isaac had to actually mention, and I don't think Michael even knew this or thought to mention it, that Isaac Hardman's wife is actually a person of colour. She's Papua New Guinean. I think she's Papua New Guinean. I think. Forgive me, that's not right. But an island, Pacific Islander heritage. So he's actually married to I think definitely a person of colour. So Isaac should have just laughed it off and said, mate, you are a peanut. You realise my wife is a person of colour? Just shut up. But it really got to him, I think, and he spent most of the week trying to explain himself when all he had to do was laugh it off and call Zarafa an idiot, and he didn't do it. So you're right with that, mate. I don't think Nikita will really get too involved with any of that sort of stuff, mate. I think anything that Michael can do now could maybe rattle Nikita, apart from maybe it's a physical altercation. Maybe it's a push. Maybe some faked aggression trying to get at Nikita and being held back. I don't know, but something like that might unsettle Nikita, but I can't see calling him a name or something that's going to get to him at all, unless he comes out with maybe a slur against either Tim or his dad or someone like that. Richard, Zarafa must have got paid so well that he's gone quiet. No, I just think he's very content within himself there, mate, I think. Oh, sorry, it looks like I've missed a super chat from Andy. Sorry there, mate. $10. Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate that. Congratulations to all the winners over the weekend, especially Dalton Smith, Caballero versus Wardy would be lit. smash the like and share button. Yep, thanks very much, Andy. Much appreciated there, mate. Eminem Zarafa could still pull out. No, mate, I don't think that's going to happen. Jeez, wouldn't that set the cat amongst the pigeons there, mate? Wouldn't it? Jeez, imagine that if he had to pull out. You see the allegations as well that sort of come out. Maybe this is along your way lines there, Jack, of trying to unsettle Nikita. Maybe they're trying to unsettle Michael as well, because there was rumours come out a couple of days ago that Michael Zarafa asked his former trainer, Sam Labruna, to purposely cut him to get out of the Tim Tszyu fight. Now, I strongly doubt that, by the way. I think that's a load of shit. But it's out there, and Michael did have to address it. So maybe it's a little bit of reverse stuff coming from the Tszyu camp. Who knows? But because Nikita was the one that actually brought it up. Now, Michael couldn't comment because of the restrictions in the legal settlement between him and Sam Labruna. But the fact that Michael had to sort of scurry to address those comments, maybe it's got into his head as well. I think when you talk about experience, though, that's the type of thing that wouldn't faze Michael at all, I wouldn't have thought. All right, Jack again. Read the footy players fighting. But if you hated him and wanted to see him get bashed, you'd pay the $70. Solomona regarded as a grub by many due to rough play. Yeah, okay, Jack, I wouldn't have a clue who he is, mate. I've seen him play rugby league. I don't follow it at all, and not even with the Storm, so I've got no idea who he is. But, yeah, maybe. I suppose Paul Gallen was a little bit the same, wasn't he, in that regard? So, yeah, maybe. Would you pay, if you hated him, would you pay $70 to watch him fight, though? I don't know. I reckon most people will just wait to watch it on the highlights a little bit later. But anyway. Alvarez Carbone. If Nikita wins impressively, who would you like to see him fight next? Good question, Alvarez. Ooh, who would I like to see him fight next? I would think definitely stepping up into the world scene, I would think. Just on the fringes, though. Maybe a 15 to 20 ranked opponent. And then, I know he is ranked, by the way, by a couple of organisations in the top 15, but I don't think he's anywhere near ready yet to fight any of the top guys. But, yeah, no, definitely from a guy probably 15 to 20 for sure, Alvarez, and probably start fighting those guys until he gets a big fight down the track. So he would have had 12 fights after Michael. I would maybe look at maybe 3, 4, maybe even 5 fights with those type of caliber opponents, and then maybe look at a big fight after that and just seeing where he's at, because in a year's time he'll be 28 or even 29, so they're going to have to step him up at some stage if he beats Michael at world level, I'm talking about. So I would think anyone for the next couple of fights, probably 15 to 20. Eminem. Still waiting for Cooper news. Well, I haven't spoken to Shannon since a couple of weeks before Christmas, Eminem. So I've got no news. I've got no concrete news anyway. But don't worry, I'll let it leak on here when it drops. Yeah, Shadow Boxer. 50 cal could be the next star. That's Callum Peters. Yeah, he's a ripper talent, Shadow Boxer. I wouldn't mind seeing him brought along slowly though. He's not an older type of guy. He's sort of, what is he, mid-20s or something? Might even be earlier 20s. I think take it easy, get him to sort of 15 or 20 fights over the next sort of 3 years, and then step him up after that. He's got plenty of time, but he definitely could be our next star, Shadow Boxer. That's for sure. Fighters like Callum Peters and Akuso need to go overseas, particularly America, to get the profile and experience they need. There just isn't the fights in Australia for them. Yeah, well, they're at the weights where there's not much, is there, Glenn? I agree. I know they've brought over a couple of opponents for Akuso. I think at the moment with Callum Peters, they're just purely just trying to get fights into him. I mean, his first 4 fights were just horrendous, weren't they? But the last one was not a bad one for him. It went a few rounds. He got tested a little bit in that fight. But Akuso is not much here for him. I don't think the Conor Wallace fight comes off. I think Conor Wallace is not going to take that type of risk when he's so close to a world title shot. So I'm with you there, Glenn, for sure. Is there any way to look up what pubs, etc., are showing the fight? Yeah, good question, Shadow Boxer. I'm not sure there'll be that many. Well, yeah, because I'll be showing it up my way, but I don't reckon. I think the Sporting Bar, was it Sporting Globe, whatever it is? I think they always show it, but yeah, it's when you're looking at sort of $800 or $900 to put it on Shadow Box, it's a lot of money to fork out, mate. It's a lot. But maybe maybe just Google it. Maybe go to KO or Main Event. Maybe they might have it on there. Just watching Nikita live on KO. He's being interviewed by Peter Bedell and Sean Porter. He really needs some media coaching. Come across very odd. He's as sharp as a pound of liver. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of that as well as, and I'll watch it after this, Tony. But I just think he's a little bit awkward on camera, but also fight week where he's probably just had enough, I would think. No Limits failure to secure any female fighters has been a mistake. I get that female boxing isn't huge, but it can as a point of variety on the cards and another avenue to draw from. I'm with you, Drew. I think it's not like there's no female talent in this country. I mean, geez, I know they've missed the boat with some of them, but they've got Shanika Johnson and Sky Nicholson and Shannon O'Connell. They had Jazzy Parr. I'm not sure whether she's still with them. Of course, Desley Robinson, Kay Scott, Ebony Bridges. Well, she's with MVP now as well. Yeah, they had the chance, Drew. They just never really seemed interested in getting behind female boxing, did they? And look, I understand sort of their business model of, well, we can't really make female boxing big in this country. It's a little bit hard here, and we can't make them pay-per-view stars. But why not? Why couldn't they have them as sort of the female stars, but always have them on the big shows, not as the main event, but have them as in the top 2 or 3 fights on the card, big fights? Why couldn't you have the Kay Scott Desley Robinson trilogy fight as the main support to say or Tim or Nikita's next fight, or a Sam Goodman or Liam Wilson fight, whatever, and actually help it sell the card? Because while a lot of fans wouldn't go out of the way to buy a standalone pay-per-view with the girls, I think if they had them on a big card, it would help people. Say this weekend, let's just say it was Shannon O'Connell versus Jazzy Parr this weekend, or Chanel Dargan, as one of the main fights on it. I think there'll be a lot of people saying, okay, well, it's still not a bad card even with the Paro fight off. I'm still going to get it because we all like watching good fights with the girls. And as I said, they don't have to build the shows around them, but they can definitely have them as part of the attraction under the main event. And I still don't get it why they've had Jazzy Parr fight Maya Solomon in Melbourne. You had Desley Robinson and Kay Scott also fight. Where'd they fight? They fought up north, and then it was in Melbourne too, was it? Desley and Chloe Chaos. Shanika Johnson's fought on no limit cards as well. She didn't have a promoter there for a while, so yeah, and now she's pound for pound number 1. Imagine if they got behind someone like her before she won the world title. I know she's with MVP and maybe wouldn't have got the opportunity if she wasn't with MVP, but yeah, I just think they've missed the boat there, Drew, for sure. Yeah, Ryan. Yep, Callum Pease might be the next star. Eminem, without knowing pay-per-view numbers for Friday night's fight, what would you suspect Nikita and Zarafa will be getting paid each for this fight? Good question, Eminem. Again, I don't know the numbers. I'm just going to take a stab. I know nothing, by the way, about the figures. I'm just guessing. I would think that Nikita would be between 1 and 150, I would think. And Nikita would, Michael Zarafa would be around 100. Yeah, just my, well, if Zarafa was getting 100, I think Nikita would be getting 150. And that's just a guess. Just a guess. So they'd probably share 250 between them. Maybe it might be more in favour of Nikita. I don't know. But I'll just a stab in the dark, I'm saying Nikita 150, Zarafa 100. I think that's about right. Who knows? It could be half of that. I've got no idea. But, you do the sums. We'll get the calculator out. If they had, let's say, 20,000 buys, and I don't know whether that's massive amounts, but I'm thinking 20,000. Oh, let's say 15,000. 15,000 times $70. That's just over 1 million. They get half of that. So they get $525,000 out of that. Let's just say 500 grand. They might get another, just going to try and think, another maybe 200 grand through the gate, or maybe even, we'll say 200 as a bare minimum. That's $700,000. Again, I'm just guessing here, guys. I'm just doing the sums. $700,000. They take out 250 for the fight of these guys. So what did I say? 700 minus 250 leaves 450. The rest of the undercard might be I'm just trying to think with purses and all that sort of stuff. Might be maybe another 150 in purses. What's that? 300 might be all expenses. I'm pretty sure main event would pay for the production and all that sort of stuff. That'd come out of their cut. But the rest of and then they've got flights, accommodation, all that sort of stuff, which might be another 100. Venue, all that sort of stuff. So they might only make 150 grand out of it, which is, you might think is a lot of money, but they've got to split that 3 ways and everything else. So I'm thinking No Limit would make 150 to 200 out of the show. I would think that'd be an okay win for them, and 150 and 100 for those two. Again, just guessing. What's that? Odd question, but what ethnicity are you? I can't tell if you're European or Middle Eastern. P.S. Have the views been going up using the hashtags, titles, and descriptions? The end question there, mate. Not really. This is, you kid me. Not really. I've done all that. I've watched a couple of things about settings on your YouTube videos and all that sort of stuff. Again, though, mate, I'm not overly stressed about having 1 million subscribers. It doesn't faze me. And being a boxing YouTuber, it's not the most popular thing that YouTubers do. You gotta be going on trips around the world and documenting your everyday life to get big numbers these days, don't you? But it's slightly gone up. But again, I'm not worried about that. What ethnicity are you? Well, I'm Aussie, mate. I know I could pass for a lot of different nationalities. I'm not Middle Eastern. Now it depends on how you define European. My mother's side is Scottish. Her maiden name's Andrews, so Scottish. And my father's side is pretty much English. It's Hosking. My last name's Hosking. It's English. Apparently, there's a little bit of Italian in there. You kid me? That's your name. I'm not saying you kid me. A little bit of Italian in there. But it's odd because I've been mistaken for so many nationalities. I could pass for a lot of different things, couldn't I? Especially with the beard. I could be Middle Eastern or Greek, Lebanese, whatever it might be. But no. I hate to disappoint you out there, mate, but I'm Scottish/English with a little bit of Italian. That's it. Okay, Mundine Jr., Green Jr., if they sign in the future. Good call there, Ryan. Yep, this is the next star. Wouldn't you be just making a phone call to Danny Green and saying, hey, mate, when he's ready to turn pro, here's our number. This is the Rose Brothers. Definitely Mundine Jr. should be a given. I know he's on this week's card, but they should be signing him up. Imagine if they had Green, Mundine, young Cooper. There's 3 really good young kids I could really get behind. Jack, Hunt versus Hussein, gunfight. Hunt should win though. Yep, I agree. I know this sounds harsh, but winning world titles isn't easy when it's all said and done. I can't see Tim, Michael, and Nikita winning a world title in the immediate or permanent future. I can't see Michael and Nikita winning world titles, Drew. I can see Tim fighting for another world title, but whether he wins one, I don't know. And I think his best hope really could be going to 160. I mean, again, you look at 154, you've got Barkram, who he's not going to go near unless Josh Kelly springs the upset. That could definitely be one they could look at because he could be beatable for Tim, for sure. Barrow, well, he's fighting Zayas, the winner of that. He could maybe look at. Definitely winnable. And obviously he's not going to go near Fundora or Ortiz or Boots, I wouldn't have thought at this stage. So I think I could see Tim fighting for a world title, 50-50 whether he wins, or maybe less of actually winning it. But I can't see Michael and Nikita fighting or let alone winning world titles, I wouldn't have thought. Drew, hang on a sec there. In a case of best of the rest outside of the Usyk, if Cabriel and Itama fought in the next 6 months, who would you favour? Itama just, Drew. I think Cabriel is a really tough guy who could really probably get down and dirty with Itama and not get himself knocked out. But I think it could go the distance. I think Itama still wins though, mate, for me. James Brown, maybe I could get on one of those no limit cards, cards myself against the footballer. Well, as long as you're prepared to take an L, James, because I'm not going to put you in there if you're any chance to win, mate. That's for sure. If they're putting these guys on the cards for the views, they're certainly not going to risk getting them beat, I can tell you. Drew, I hear the tags of villain to sell a fight, but I hardly ever see Zarafa as a villain. I think he offers opinions that not everyone likes, particularly the media, who constantly hype the zoos. Yeah, look, it's not a bad call there, Drew. I've never really seen Michael as the villain. Now, I've clashed with Michael a couple of times over a couple of comments I've made. It was never been about, or nothing, definitely nothing ever personal. I'll never say that about anyone. Certainly not online, but I will critique them as far as other things that I see. I've never really seen him as the villain, though. I think if we've got to have a villain, well, he would fit the bill. But I've always just seen him. My issue with him has always been just saying things that are a little bit delusional. That's just been my criticism of Michael. But I think he believes what he's saying, and that's great. And yes, he maybe adopts the villain persona to help sell a fight. And I've got no doubt they've actually encouraged that, the No Limit boys and whoever else has promoted him. But I've just sort of seen him as, yeah, some of the comments are the bit of an eye roll situation with the comments that he puts out there. But he believes it, and that's all that matters, and that's what obviously drives him. So good luck. Good luck to him. But I certainly don't see him as the villain. Misunderstood a little bit, maybe. But what I actually do like about Michael, by the way, Drew, is that he's always been happy to give an honest answer to a question. And that's what I love. He doesn't skirt around or whatever they call it, or tiptoe around it, or give answers that he thinks that you want to hear. He'll call them out. And he comes out with facts as well, or opinions to back up facts to back up his opinions. So I like that part of it. I really do. I would much rather that than some of the stuff we get where they just roll out the standard line. So, yeah, I think he's great for Aussie boxing, Drew, 100%. Oh, okay. Paulie Malignaggi on the commentary for this week's fights. He's on the grand arrivals right now with Sean Porter. How good's that? Wow, that's awesome. Paulie Malignaggi and Sean Porter both here for Zarafa versus Sue. That is crazy. Good stuff. Beebs agrees. Easy to say Matthias was overrated after the fact. We forget 6 fighters retired on the stool, one of which was the late Maxim Dadashev. It's suspect his loss coincides with the PED findings. Not a bad call there, James. Not James. J. Beeb, sorry. Good call. Asbot, my bet is that Nikita has taken note of Tim's failures and we will see a more cautious, defensive and strategic Nikita. I hope so, Asbot. I would hope that Tim has given Nikita just a few tips and not just let him go. I mean, he's still his older brother, he's experienced. I would think he would say, hey, Nikita, this is what I would do against him, and maybe Nikita would take a little bit of that on. Why wouldn't he use the resources of having a former world champion as a brother at his disposal? Ado, I thought Dalton's decision to stand and bang with Sabria was suicidal until he knocked him out. Big balls between his legs and now the champ. Yeah, I thought it was just going to end one way, although I did know the result after or before I watched it, though, Ado. But watching, I'm thinking, geez, how the hell did Dalton Smith not get knocked out here? But he just hung with him until Matthias was the one that folded, didn't he? So, Drew, apart from his constant Canelo bashing, I love listening to Paulie Malignaggi. I would love to exclusively just hear him and Sean Porter calling the marquee fights in Australia. Quality cost. Yeah, well, would that make it worth the $70? Maybe. I love listening to them talk as well, Drew. I think they really know their stuff. Paulie can get a little bit emotional about things, I suppose, but passionate. And I think Sean Porter is very measured, very well spoken, knows his stuff. They make a really good pair, I think. Well, that fighters are facing off right now in the rain. Okay, well, I'll be looking at this straight after we're finished here at 9 o'clock. Paulie's Canelo bashing is spot on. Yep, Glenn agrees with him. Yep. Drew, huge props to Fabio Wardley for his wins over Hooney and Parker, but against Usyk, Caballero, or even Fury, he falls significantly short. I can't get the lead-up rounds of the Hooney KO out of my mind. Yeah. I actually thought Justice Hooney was going to get him out of there, Drew. Probably about the round before he got knocked out himself. But yeah, I think we admire Wardley for the wins over Parker and Hooney, but you can't forget everything that happened around that. Now he's got big balls and big heart and all that sort of stuff. He can punch, obviously, but we still can't excuse the fact that he was well behind him in both fights before he got the stoppage. So I think if you fought someone like a Fury or especially an Usyk, maybe a Caballero, I don't think they would make the mistake of punching themselves out and maybe leave themselves vulnerable later in the fight. Ado, whose chin do you trust more, Zarafa or Nikita? I'm thinking the result will largely depend on this. All right, so if Zarafa nails Nikita with a good shot, or Nikita nails Zarafa with a really good shot, I am going to trust. Geez, it's a good question, Ando. I'm just trying to picture the fight. I trust. I probably trust Nikita's more. I know he's been rocked a few times. I can more so see Nikita knocking Zarafa out than the other way around. So I suppose I'm basing my opinion on that. I can see Zarafa nailing Nikita, maybe knocking him down early or whatever it might be. But I think Nikita can withstand the barrage. But I think Nikita can really. It depends on the fight that Michael Zarafa fights. I think if he, again, as I said earlier, if he stands in front of Nikita and fights him the way he sort of fought Jeff Horn the second time, I think it's lights out for Mike. I think Nikita can nail him. If he fights like he did against Hardman and gave him some movement, some angles, lured him in to nail him, then I think Zarafa can definitely nail Nikita. But I'm backing Nikita to get the job done. Tony, ex-footy player stepping into the ring, worked out for Anthony Mundine from the rugby code. Would have loved to see Ablett Senior have a serious shot at it, but he chose a different path. Yeah, I think the way I look at it, Tony, is that Anthony Mundine, I think he always had the talent to be a boxer. I think he was always a boxer that played football, not the other way around. I don't think he was a football player who then became. Well, he did. I know he was a football player who went to boxing, but what I'm saying is I always think he was always a boxer. He just chose to play rugby league first and then went to boxing after that. But I think he was a better boxer than he was a football player. Let's face it. Ablett Senior, I know he gave Leicester a bit of a touch up back in the day, Tony, but yeah, I don't know. You see a lot of these football players who, as soon as they get in with someone that can actually punch back, they have a few issues. So I'm not quite sure Ablett Senior would have done the job. But yeah, he was super talented, Gary Ablett Senior, wasn't he? But yeah, I'm not so sure he would have been a good boxer, but you never know. Drew, I would trust Zarafa's chin more than Nikita's. Getting dropped by the likes of Quillan and Lara is much less alarming than the domestic level opponents who dropped Zoo. But look at what happened in those fights, Drew. He got absolutely, squished, if you want to call it that, by Quillan and Lara. Carried out on a stretcher against Quillan and dropped by Lara, or knocked out by Lara. Now, I don't know. Is it a matter of who you're getting dropped by or how you react to the punches you're getting hit with? I don't know. It's a tough one. Let's just call it a draw on the chin front. James, on the female fighters thing, I don't think the general public want to see it. No, I don't think so, James. That's why I said I don't think the big female cards or fights could stand alone by themselves. But they put a big female fight, let's just say, as I said, let's just say it could be Sky Nicholson versus Shannon O'Connell. I'm just, again, picking a fight, a big female fight, and they put it on the undercard of Tim Tszyu versus whoever. That's a big card. I know it's big with Tim on it, but I think people would look at that and go, wow, that is an awesome card. And it probably wouldn't cost them a shitload of money either. But if they want to get behind female boxing, that's the way I think they do it. They include it on the big male cards. They don't try and do it themselves. Andy, our Aussie champ, Desi Robinson, deserves more publicity. Yeah, she does, Andy, but probably same as Kay Scott as well. I mean, they've got to win each over each other. I don't know what's happened to Shay Keneally. She's just sort of gone missing, hasn't she? But look, I'm all for the girls, Andy. I'll look, apart from the Aussie girls, I must admit I don't really take a lot of notice of the overseas stuff unless it's a Serrano or Katie Taylor or one of those types. But I certainly wouldn't watch Clarissa Shields fights. Just can't stand her. Maybe the Michaela Mayers, Sandy Ryans, and those types of ones are okay. But yeah, I wouldn't go out of my way. But the Aussie girls I'll always watch, and to have them on those big cards, or maybe it just, I know we're a little bit behind over here in Australia as far as getting our heads around female boxing, but maybe by continually putting them on those cards, not as the main event, as I said, maybe a co-main or even one below that, just to have them in the top 3 fights on the card. I just think it would help the sport grow and do their part to help Aussie boxing. Because as I said before, it's not like we've got no good female fighters and just putting them on there as token gestures. No, we've got what do we got? Robinson, Scott, or Desi Robinson, Kay Scott, Shanika Johnson, not that they can put her on, I know. Shay Keneally, I'm not forgetting anyone as far as world champions goes. And then the likes of Shannon O'Connell. That's Shannon O'Connell and Chanel Dargan fight. That should be on a no limit card, and it's on a Wanderers card. Good on Wanderers for putting it on, by the way, but it should be on a bigger card. The Robinson fight, her last fight should have been on a no limit card, as should have Mai Solomon and Juzzy Parr. I'd like to ask them why they don't get behind female boxing if I had a chance to talk to them. But anyway. Naz says 100%. Hope her. This is Desi Robinson and Kay Scott do the trilogy for Undisputed. Well, wouldn't you be pushing for that fight to be on a no-limit card? An undisputed world title fight on Australian soil. It's a no-brainer. What's that, Frank? Still the best beard on YouTube. Needs to be celebrated. Well, I actually had a bit of a shear down, Frank. It was getting a little bit puffy there for a while, but I appreciate that. Yeah, pretty good guesstimation. Well, it's just a guess, mate. That's all it is. I think I got that right. What's that? You thought I was Greek or Lebanese? Nah, mate. I'm, as I said, English / Scottish with a bit of Italian. Yeah, Ned Kelly had a beard. Yes, he did. All right, let's grab a drink here. All right, speaking of fighter payments, last week when Raheem Mundine was added to the card, I saw a Facebook post from Jamie Meyer Productions offering $2,000 to anyone interested in fighting Mundine. I did see the same post there, Claire. Yes, I did see that. I think he'd be, well, I was going to say he's probably getting more than that. It's only a 4-rounder, so it probably wouldn't surprise me. They probably go back to Chock or whoever's managing CJ and say, well, you know, he's on the main pay-per-view card. It's great for exposure and all that sort of stuff, and you got to start small and go big and all that after that. Maybe he might get $2,500 if they were lucky, I reckon, Claire, for Chock Mundine Jr. We're calling him that. And his opponent's probably getting about $1,000 or $15, I would think. Wouldn't be a lot of money. But, yeah, I did see that post too, and it's not a lot of money, is it? I was promoting 10 years ago, and you're getting $500 a round back then. That's 10 years ago. Maybe $450 to $500. So the fact it's only $500 10 years later, yeah, it's wouldn't you have thought that no limit would be, if you're fighting a no limit and you're on the main pay-per-view card, you'd be looking at $1,000 a round? I would have thought. Maybe that's why I didn't cut it as a promoter, because I was willing to pay good money for the fighters. I'd be thinking $1,000 a round for a 4-rounder on the main card of a pay-per-view. But anyway. Do you think Jai could be the most unknown elite class fighter in the world? I'm sure he's very frustrated with lack of quality opportunities. How can this be happening? I think overseas he's got a lot of respect for you. And I think what they probably should do with Jai, and I know it's a hard one because here they still cover their costs here, is to get him over to England or try and get him back on the Saudi cards. Not that there's been a lot lately, has there, the Saudi cards, but could quite possibly be the most unknown elite class fighter in the world. Yes, Furian, 100%. Yep. Overseas, he's very well known, but he's just that guy, that good guy that holds the IBF cruiserweight belt. That's what I'm talking about. Like, he's not a Jai Apatow. It's just, that cruiserweight guy is the best in the world. What's his name again? Opa something. He's the best, but I can't quite remember his name. That's why I feel for him. I really do. And that's why I said earlier why maybe breaking bread with no limit could be a good idea. But anyway, I mean, imagine how the support for Jai would be if he was regularly fighting on main event. Excuse me. I know there's reasons behind it, but it's a shame when the politics sort of come into it. But I know there's probably a good reason that Mick and George Rose aren't on speaking terms. Mark, I thought 10% was the standard trainer percentage. No, I don't think so, mate. Look, it depends on the fighter, I suppose. Look, maybe, and when you get to those real top-line guys, by the way, it's sometimes a set amount. So say it's Terence Crawford. Again, I'm just guessing here, but I'm giving you a bit of an indication. Now, if he got the $50 million, whatever it was, for fighting, after his taxes and all that sort of crap comes out, he might have said to, what's his trainer's name? Bomac. He might have said, all right, I'm going to pay you $5 million. And that is 10%, I suppose. I'm going to pay you $5 million. We did see, was it Oscar De La Hoya offered, I think Floyd Mayweather Sr. a set fee of $1 million or $2 million, whatever it was, a few years ago. And Floyd Mayweather Sr. knocked it back. So it was a monetary offer, not a percentage. So I would have thought In some cases, it's 10. Some cases, it could be 15, could be 20. I don't know, but I know when those really top guys with they're getting the massive purses, they will be. I mean, there's no way Canelo, even if he's paying what's his name, his trainer, you know what I'm talking about. Even if it was 10%, it would have been it would have been $15 million. Nah, he would have said, mate, he's $5 million. And if you want to be my trainer, take the $5 million, which he would, of course. So it just varies. It could be 10% or a set amount. It could be 20. It could be 30 sometimes. Actually, I think the manager might be along those lines. But whatever it is there, mate. But it just varies on the fighter and their standing and how much they're getting paid. Shadowboxer, when you clashed with Zarafa, what happened? Did he come at you at a show? No, mate. No, he didn't. No, he sent me a text message that was pretty blunt, and I returned fire with my own retort. I'm not going to take shit off anyone, mate, as far as having something to say. And the reason why I do that, while I'll never take a step back no matter who they are, is because I've always stood by the principles and morals of never, ever saying anything personal. Okay, so I would fully respect all retribution. If I was saying something personal about Mike or anyone else, I expect to cop it, and I would, yep, guilty as charged. But when I'm just commenting about or retorting, if that's a word, replying to a comment or something that's happened, it's all just nothing personal, just all based on boxing, and that's it. That's why I've got no dramas. The thing's always been, I'll never say anything online or wherever without, if I wasn't prepared to back it up, if they confronted me about it. And when Michael messaged me, I said exactly what I said on the video, that I didn't agree with him, and I'll just say whatever the hell I want. I don't need him or anyone else telling me what I can and can't say. I'm not a reporter, so I'm not Jay McAllister, who's got to go and put a microphone in his face like he did and cop it. I'm just a guy on YouTube having my say. So if anything, he should be just disregarding what I'm saying. He should be, oh yeah, well, another wannabe on YouTube. But no, he's obviously I promoted him years ago. So he sent me a text message and I replied in kind, exactly the way he spoke to me, I spoke back to him. But it was never personal. I will say that. And never will be personal. I've got no issues with Michael. I got no issues with Michael at all, whether it be personal or with boxing, none at all. I just had my say about where, I think it was to do with after the Lara fight when, I can't remember what happened, but I said what I said, but I sort of disagreed with what he was saying online. It was only just not that long after he lost to Lara. I think it was on the lines of, man, I don't know how you could be saying some of this stuff after what happened against Lara. And he took offense to that, and that's fine. That's his prerogative. So if he ever wants to message me or pick up the phone, I'm happy to take his call and explain to him why. But the way he reacted was, I thought, very unprofessional, and I replied with the same language he commented to me at. So that's the way it goes. But again, I'll reiterate, it's never personal, guys. It's all just boxing related. And I think in this day and age, I'm allowed to disagree with someone else. I know in this day and age, you can't disagree with anyone, can you? They get all bent out of shape. But people disagree with me every day on my videos. And it's like, it is what it is. Okay? All right, here we go. We'll continue on. But it's all good though, Shadow Boxer. No dramas from this end. Eminem, I hope me sharing your content daily on Instagram is trying to boost your viewing. Oh, BoxMad Media, there you go. All things. I forgot that was you, Eminem. No, I really appreciate it, mate. Eminem, and make sure, guys, you follow BoxMad Media on Instagram. Eminem shares my story every day, so Nate, I really appreciate that. Thank you, mate. And just gets it out to his followers. So give Eminem a follow there. BoxMad Media on. I'm assuming you haven't got a YouTube page, Eminem. It's just Instagram, but support him, guys. He's trying to get out all the videos and posts that a lot of other boxing sites put up. So support Eminem in what he's doing. Great stuff. What's that, Shadow Boxing? I like Malinagi because you're both Italian. Come on, mate. I've got like 1 or 2 drops in me, I reckon. I know I do look Italian, but I'm not. Apparently this is way back, by the way, Shadow Boxer. Way back. All right. Yeah, good stuff, Naz. Yep, give him a follow. Motorsport 5. Agree, it's great to see Sean and Paulie calling the fight. I'm a fan of Pro Box TV, though. What was Paulie thinking late last year fighting Bare Knuckle? He's retired. He's a retired champion now and a commentator. Yeah, I didn't like that motorsport. I didn't like the fact he got in there and he got really busted up too, didn't he? Yeah, I don't like it. Just retire, Paulie. Very, very good fighter back in the day, Paulie Malignaggi, and he can fight still, but that's just a brutal, brutal sport. James disagrees. Okay, Mundine was a better football player than a boxer. Yeah, okay. I must admit, I didn't see a lot of him as a rugby player, James. I'm probably just going on by what he achieved as a rugby player versus a boxer. But does that make him Australia's greatest sportsman if you ask him that he was able to be such a great football player and boxer? Naz, I'd love to see Terramona put the challenge out to Bakador Jalalev in the pros. Yes, I'd love to see that too, Naz. 5 Cent Abridgee. I'd rather see Nikita versus a top 15 international opponent. Zarafa versus Tapia. Biggs versus Mazudia. Good call there, Bridgie. I like those matchups. Zarafa and Tapia won't happen, though, I wouldn't have thought, mate. I doubt that happens. They're good mates and they're sort of going separate ways. Yeah, Zarafa Mikhailovic would have been a good one just for the presser. Yeah, it would have been too, Naz. I follow Mikhailovic on Instagram. He's put out some posts lately that if you don't follow him, make sure you do, because he's been very, very open with a lot of stuff that's been going on in his career. Andy, don't know if it's true, but I've heard Michelasian wants something like $6 million to unify versus Jai. Is that right? Price out, in my opinion, if Noel made nothing close to that previously. If Zerdo wanted 12, are they hoping for Turkey? Thoughts? Yeah, just a way to price themselves out of it, Andy. If, of course, they don't have to fight Jai because he's not a mandatory or anything. He's a fellow champion, so they don't have to fight him. Then again, I suppose you can't blame him if the odds are they're going to probably lose to Jai. And I think Zerdo would probably back himself, but I think Michelasian would probably not think he's a great chance of beating Jai. Well, why not get paid for it if you're going to take the risk and put up your belt? So that's ridiculous. There's no way he's getting paid 6, I wouldn't have thought. Is Jai still being co-promoted by Matchroom? Yes, he is, Eminem, at this stage. Not 50-50, though. A minor player they are. I gave him $1. Would love to see more of Jacob NG. Thought he had a bit of talent and his fights are always entertaining. Yeah, he's had one fight since he's been back, mate, but let's hope we see more of him. Ryan, another great show. Thank you, mate. I tune in every day and always love the little adventures, nearly stuff going. Magpies, other dogs, kids chasing the dog. Yeah, we get into a little bit of drama sometimes, Ryan. I did say this morning there's a young kid out there chasing his dog around the neighbourhood, and I managed to catch the dog and I gave him back to his to the young fella, but he must have lost him along the journey. And I was going to give him Neil's lead, but lucky another lady was there. She had 2 dogs and gave him one that he was able to get his dog home. Poor little bugger, running around the oval and in the bush trying to chase his dog. Very friendly dog, by the way. The only reason I got him because he come over to say g'day to Neil. But yeah, dodging magpies. Yeah, lots of things go on there, Ryan, and lots of other dogs. And sometimes I'm trying to do the video, and you see a lot of the same people every day. And I always sort of take different sort of tracks, but and different times of the day. But we always seem to run into people all the time, and you sort of get halfway through a video, or you just start a video, or you want to start a video, and someone wants to stop for a chat, and yeah, that's hard work as well. But yeah, I enjoy doing it, Ryan, and thanks for tuning in, mate. Yep, the Flamingo will be back. Yeah, I did hear that, Eminem. All right, a couple more minutes. I think Opetai's slightly overrated, says the only Azar. He's nearly been chinned in his last couple. His legs were gone, and he struggled when he's not fighting tin cans. Well, I'm assuming you're not Aussie, so it's good to have a different point of view there, Azar. So, yeah, no, it's not a bad point. Andy, in my opinion, if Jai wasn't all that, Zerdo, Bill and Smith, or Badu Jack would have fought him already. Another good point, but they didn't. Jai, obviously, high risk, low reward. Yes. Still with bait and eggs. This day and age, they'll block you if you say something that they don't agree with. They're worse than the E-Karen. Yeah, they are. They are. Andy, Mundine achieved more in boxing than any other crossover athlete. Was slick on the basketball court, too. I've heard he was a really good basketball player, Andy. He sure was a bit of an athlete. Yep, that's for sure. Is that Gunay? Hi from Cyprus. G'day, Gunay. Thanks for tuning in, mate. It's a pity you just come on now because I've got about 1 minute to go. But anyway, Andy, what's your final predictions on Nikita versus Zarafa, the card fight? Oh, okay, the actual card. All right, let's have a quick look before we finish up. All right. All right. Well, we'll start. I'm down the bottom of box rec here, by the way, so we're in all sorts of different orders. I'm going to go for CJ Mundine to have an easy win over Jeff Matthews. I don't know enough about Jack Javed or Zephy Valuatu, so I'll not comment on that one. I think Nelson Asofa Salamanu will knock out Jeremy Lattimore. Billy Pokinghorn will beat Jomar Palawin. Max Reeves will beat Sonny Abidge. That should be a good fight, though. Dempsey McKean will beat Tuoso Vasoatu on points. Stephen Ivic, Liam Taliva. I think Taliva wins that one on points. Blake Wells beats Andwa Yilizati. I think that's how you pronounce it. Liam Wilson has a good win over Rodex Piala. And Nikita Zoo beats Michael Zarafa. But I'll give a full breakdown on Friday there, mate. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Yes, hit the like, says I gave him $1. Yep, for sure. And, yeah, I'll catch you next time too, Bait and Egg. So don't forget, every morning on YouTube and hopefully Spotify around the same time with Walking Boxing. And, again, I'll give my full preview of the Friday night fights on Friday morning. I'll watch the grand arrivals all that later tonight, and each day they do each different thing. I'll comment on that, but the big preview on Friday morning, and obviously the review on Saturday morning. Yes, go Blues, Dean. That's for sure, mate. It doesn't come up there, but yeah, go Blues in 2026. Not great today though, Dean, losing Jesse Motlop with an ACL. What are we doing? But anyway, go watch another boxing Carlton show for that. Go watch Blue Abroad or the Jumper Punch. If you're a Carlton supporter, great YouTube channels. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Have an awesome week, and we'll catch you next Monday on Talking Boxing.